Hey guys, Jessica here. So today we're going to talk about a cheap Amazon pump. This pump is listed for $69.99 on Amazon. It's routinely discounted to $59.99 and there's often a 20 to 40% off coupon. So we are talking, this is a cheap pump, but a lot of my long-term clients who have a variety of pumps have gotten this pump at some point to try because who doesn't want to try a pump for less than $50? I always found that trying one of these random cheap pumps would kind of like rejuvenate my commitment to pumping because I wanted to play with a new toy. Pumping's hard work, so sometimes we buy these things. But they've been singing this pump's praises, but there's been one question they all keep asking. Hey, do you know what all these settings are on this pump? Because there's so many settings. And these are moms who are operating fairly advanced breast pumps and other programs who are not asking me those questions. So I was like, well, I gotta check this out. So this is it's either the IKARE, the IKARE. I will link it down below on Amazon, but this is your IKARE pump is what I'm going to call it. It appears to be an Australian brand, but looking at the manual, there's a lot of errors in the manual that suggest that this is really a Chinese company that is maybe selling in Australia and is now on the US Amazon site. I have no idea if this is actually FDA approved. It does have a little FDA icon over here on the bottom, so I'm gonna hope that it's FDA approved. But again, finding these smaller brands for whatever reason, it's not easy. The FDA should really rethink that for consumers. We really need better protections to know exactly what the medical equipment coming in the US is and is it cleared, and we should not have these questions. But that's for another video. So it does appear to be FDA approved based on what they're saying. So I put it to the test, and I will say I get why they were asking me about all these questions because the manual doesn't quite describe it in a useful way, which often happens when the manual is being translated from Chinese to English. Sometimes the terms get completely lost because the languages are not one to one, and we get some interesting translations. And if they don't have somebody who is a native English speaker reviewing their information, then you get things like not this pump, but another one referred to it as cow type mothers instead of heavy milk expression. So, we have a couple of those in there, which suggests this is probably a Chinese brand. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Um, we have no idea if they cover anything with the warranty. They're just being sold on Amazon here in the US, so I would hope that they're honoring something. But Amazon's just going to kick you back to the company, and if the company is not honoring the warranty, you're out of luck. However, it's less than $50, so I think it's worth the gamble. It does come with semi-decent parts. So these are the parts that came with it. It did come with 2 sets of parts, and it came with an extra duckbill. And it is just a standard flange size. So it came with 24s. These look like the old school Modellas, but it fits all of our standard flange sizes. So you can modify this pump. These parts are not bad at all. It is going to be easy enough that if you can't get replacement parts for these, which I didn't see them on Amazon, but those things come in and out of stock, you can just pair this with Spectra parts. You can pair it with Medela. I think you can pretty much pair this with anything. It felt like a fairly compatible universal motor. But here's where it gets cool. This pump has the ability to do light fast suction and some of the longest, strongest suction I've seen. And it does it all in one fairly easy to use pump. So let's go through what the different modes are on this pump. You have massage mode, which is going to be your short, light, fast suction intended to stimulate a letdown. This pump is running 111 cycles per minute down to 94 from 50 mmHg to 107 mmHg on that setting. Most of our conventional pumps simply can't match that on their simulation settings. If they could, we would have more success with some of the consumer grade pumps. So massage mode right out of the gate, I'm really pleased with. That is going to be a success for a lot of people. Then they have a mode called Bionics. Bionics is their expression mode. So that is 82 mmHg to 225 mmHg, 66 cycles per minute down to 41. That is, again, that surpasses a lot of our standard pumps. It has a little bit better cycle speeds on expression mode. It has a really good suction range. For a pump that is $60, this is kind of unheard of. Not gonna lie, I'm kind of impressed at this point. And then they have a mode called Deep Express, and this is where this pump just started blowing me out of the water. This one is your longer, stronger, slower pulls. This is the mode that's going to mimic like the back half of expression mode on the Baby Buddha. This is 180 mmHg to 311 mmHg, which is really strong, going from 33 cycles per minute to 14 cycles per minute. So that is a really wide range. And when you start looking at, you've got all three of these modes on the same pump that you have full access to. Now we're talking that this pump has cycle speeds that can compete with the Unimom Opera, the Spectra Synergy Gold, the Baby Buddha. It has the strength. It can compete with your Spectra Synergy Gold. It can compete with your Baby Buddha, and it's doing it at a fraction of the price. It does not have vibration though. The motor itself vibrates, but by the time it got through the tubing, I would say it is all but vibration free. It's not the smoothest suction, but again, $60. You are going to sacrifice some amount of quality at $60. This is not going to be, the latest, greatest pump that you've ever used. It's a $60 pump. But suction range, cycle speeds, man, this thing is blowing it out of the water. And then we have 3 additional modes because 3 great modes wasn't enough. We have something called Massage plus Bionic. And what that is 9 short pulls and 1 long pull. That is running from about 100 mmHg on the short pulls to 220 on the long pulls. And it's 76 cycles per minute to 55. This reminded me of like a slightly less intense Baby Buddha classic stimulation mode. It's going to match the stimulation mode that we see on the Baby Buddha 2.0 a little bit closer. It was actually fairly gentle, but still really strong. And that longer sustained pull is actually longer than the Baby Buddha. So that is something to keep in mind, is that if you have tried the Baby Buddha and you don't like that long sustained pull, you don't want anything to do with their mixed modes on this pump. Then you have Massage plus Deep Express, which this one was trying to suck milk out of your toes. This one is about 100 mmHg on your short pull for your 9 pulls, and then 300 mmHg, which is actually stronger than what the original version 1 Baby Buddha back in 2018 that people said was trying to take off their nipples. That's the closest I can get to the original Baby Buddha. It's actually a little bit stronger, but it had a really long sustained pull. For my moms who were diehard original Baby Buddha users who have not loved that upgrade, they might really like this. They might really like this longer, stronger pull. It's also likely to do a little bit of nipple damage. So, your mileage may vary. And then it has what we call a freestyle mode. And I actually have to pull the notes up on this one. So freestyle mode just meant that you had full control over your cycle speed and your suction. They weren't paired together. So you could go from 41 mmHg was your lowest suction at 109 cycles per minute. And then you could end up at 313 mmHg, which is really strong, and 15 cycles per minute. So if you were somebody who didn't really like the pairings that were available, you had the ability to use this freestyle mode and really get it to where you wanted it to be. That actually reminds me more of like the control that we get with like the Medela Symphony, where you have the ability to just kind of move within their settings. It's not really pre-programmed. It had that really wide variety. So overall thoughts on this pump, like it's on the cheaper side. I would have expected it to be rated in its manual for about 200, 300 hours. That seems to be like the average on these cheaper pumps. And this one, the manual said 800, which is honestly a little hard to buy, but I don't know, maybe they didn't scrimp on some of these parts. Some of what you're paying for with breast pumps is the support for the breast pump. You're paying for that warranty. You're paying for their customer support. You're paying for their advertising. The pump market is really heavily saturated. So some brands are going to need to sell their pump for, 200, 250 in order to meet the demands to compete in this environment. You're paying for that. In this case, they're just sticking it on Amazon. So they may have just cut out a lot of the overhead without sacrificing as much of the quality. It's hard to say. I'm interested to see people who are using this long term. I will say that this brand was not new to me. At one point I was doing some contract work for a company and I had a lot of moms in Australia and they were using these pumps. It was considered to be like a primary pump for them. So the same way that we would treat like your Spectras, your heavy duty, your Unimom Operas. Now, it was selling for more there. So I don't know that it's exactly the same. I don't even know that it's actually the same brand. It's really hard to say because how things work. But for $60, if you're somebody that, you're struggling with a lot of these portable pumps, you only need a portable every now and then. So you maybe don't want to invest in a full priced option. This might be a good one to consider. Or if you're just looking for something to play with and see. The other advantage of this I would think of is for moms who are trying to figure out what works for them. A lot of moms buy their insurance pump actually before their baby gets here. And frankly, I hate that for them because while it's great we have it on hand, I have no idea as a lactation professional what you're actually going to need. Maybe you do need just a little lightweight portable. Maybe you need something with stronger suction. Maybe you need lower suction. This might be a way for moms to get a decent pump out of pocket before using their insurance benefit, because your insurance benefit could buy you a pump that's several $100s and could be really long-term successful for you. But this would allow us to kind of try a couple different things, see how it works. It might be a lower cost way to try and see, do these mixed mode pumps work for you? Is this a good idea? What are your thoughts on it? Would you do better if your pump went a little bit faster? This might be a low cost way. Even if this pump itself doesn't end up working out for you, it may give us that flexibility to kind of see what's working. So I definitely think this is worth considering. I'm going to put the Amazon link below. If you're using it, I'd love to hear your thoughts because this pump actually kind of has me impressed. But hopefully this helps you with understanding what those different settings are because the manual is not super clear. I can see why it was confusing moms. It actually took me a little bit to kind of wrap my head around. But once I got my head around it, this is a pretty impressive pump, especially at this price point. So hope that helps and happy pumping.